Okay, we're going to go over some special features, unique or at least pretty leading edge on this 1915 Scripps. So you're going to learn something, and so am I. Here we go. All right, Alan, I had a few questions about the brakes on this 1915 Scripps, and you said you'd be willing to give us a little bit of a tour of the brakes and maybe a few other features of this car. Suspension, maybe.
Well, the brakes, this is 1915, so this is the one brake era, i.e. one side of the car, rear.
Okay.
But this is a race car, so it has a bronze trunnion that was first made popular by the Bugatti race cars.
Okay.
So when you push on the brake pedal, or when you pull down the hand brake, you're basically twisting a bar in the center of the car.
Okay. And
that bar, through the center of it, has a piece of galvanized cable.
Okay.
And that cable that's going through that bar is called a bronze trunnion, goes through that bar and out through two pulleys to the rear.
Okay.
So both rear brakes are using the same single cable. What's happening?
Yeah, only one is lifting up right now.
Well, okay.
There's the other one.
So you have...
Was one the parking brake?
Well, it's called a hand
brake.
Oh,
a hand brake. Okay, yeah. Okay.
So if that cable snaps, you don't have any brakes anywhere.
Oh, so it's a loop. It goes from one rear wheel up through the trunnion and back to the other rear wheel.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
And why did they do that? Because if you're in a race and it's on a horse track, it might be banked. When you're coming in, you go ahead and use the handbrake and you're pulling on it. And by you're pulling on it, you're not really engaging it so much. You're pulling on it.
Yeah.
And that's what that is doing. That's moving that cable to the right, to the left in that bronze trunnion, which gives you equal pressure to both rear wheels.
Okay, all right.
And the foot pedal does the same thing too.
Sure.
But the hand brake is this long. So you can really make it perfect. The foot pedal, you only have an inch of throw.
So much, yeah.
So you're much smoother to set the rear brakes with the hand brake and then go ahead and munch on the foot pedal.
Okay, so we're always thinking nowadays with hydraulic or even, I guess, electric brakes or using a computer, but with hydraulics, you know, the fluid can equalize itself easily.
That's right.
But with a cable, you've got to find a way.
And this was in the era of mechanical brakes.
Right.
And mechanical brakes didn't just mean there wasn't hydraulics. There was mechanical rods actuating each rear wheel. So all the rods started in the same part of a bar, and then you had the same pressure exactly on level ground, flat, on each brake. But real life steps in, and if you have one wheel way off the ground and the other one is collapsed or whatever, you have different amounts of brakes.
Right.
So you could not race it safely.
Yeah, inevitably one of the rear wheels will start skidding and not having traction.
Right. So this car solves that by having the bronze trunnion and the single cable. Okay. So I'll show you the cable ends from the trunnion. They're right here.
Okay.
And you can see as I engage the brake, it moves up that little pulley.
Yep.
And then this is the foot pedal.
Yep. Interesting.
So you have equal pressure by having a steel cable. And then back here, this is really up-to-date technology. The brakes are right off an 1871 Stagecoach.
So literally, that's what they were using on stagecoaches.
Yep. So are you seeing it move on the outer brake? Is that the outer or the inner?
That's the inner.
Okay.
Or no, that was the outer. Okay, I see it now.
Is that moving it now?
Yep, sure is.
See how that works?
Yeah. Huh.
So there's an inner the drum brake.
Yep.
And there's an outside the drum brake.
Interesting. Okay. So, I'm just getting my brain around all that. That's quite interesting.
So in the wet, you might want to use or rely on your inner brake more. Okay. But you've got asbestos on both sides. And asbestos is the best material in the world for braking.
Yeah, not for breathing.
Maybe not breathing, but for braking.
Right.
Because no matter how much oil or water gets on asbestos, it clamps the same way.
Oh.
It doesn't really fade. You know, it was the best material to slow you down and stop you 100 and some years ago.
Right.
Maybe you don't want to be the car behind it.
Right. Okay. Well, that answers some of those questions. So now when we see these cars, and to think this has an inner and outer, so of course the inner drum is going to be less likely to get wet. That
Yes.
makes sense.
Yes.
And is that the one that's on the foot pedal? I guess.
I forgot. One of them is on the handbrake.
Yeah.
And one is on the foot pedal.
Okay.
But I don't drive it and race it in the wet, so
Right.
it doesn't really matter too
Doesn't
much.
matter.
And we live in Arizona.
Right. All right. So let's talk about the suspension.
The suspension, these are friction shocks.
Okay.
So basically inside of this, there's 4 brass or steel circles.
Okay.
And there's 2 to 4 asbestos circles. And by tightening this,
Okay.
you're putting more and more tension on the shocks.
Okay.
So you can set the car exactly as you want to set it. So this is a pretty long travel car. Also, notice that the spring is only a half spring.
Yeah, that's right. It's just half a leaf.
It starts in the front, and there's no coupling or end to the rear.
Right.
So if there was a leaf spring and you had that short of a distance, you might have 2 or 3 inches of travel.
Right.
But because you've taken this one away,
Right.
and this one is free, you have 7 or 8 inches of travel. So it was really good because they didn't really have paved roads back 110 years ago.
Right.
So this had a lot of suspension travel.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. So you have the effect of, you probably have the give of if it was a 6-foot long leaf spring.
Or longer.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And so you can adjust the ride height with that? Can
No.
you? No. It's
I
just
can only adjust the tension.
It's the tension of how much it springs
On the
back.
friction disc,
Yeah.
whether it be asbestos or whatever kind of fibrous material that you are using, you're tightening that. And the more you tighten it, the less travel you're going to have.
Okay. Yeah.
So you can mark it with a ribbon or something and see how much pull or how much stretch you're getting.
Right.
And you could kind of match it to that race course.
Gotcha. So it's a clamping tension kind of a thing.
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Interesting. Wow. So it's funny, when I first saw this car, I didn't pay enough attention to realize there's cables running right through underneath the little step that go all the way around. Well, you know what? That is really fascinating. So what was it about the front brakes you were going to tell us?
The front brakes never, ever cause any trouble. These front brakes never need any attention. Oh, I remember. They hadn't invented them yet.
Yeah. I imagine it was enough that the front wheels were steering, right? That was enough.
Yep, and they steer pretty darn well.
Yeah.
And they have friction shocks on them too.
Oh, yeah.
But the front end has less travel on this car.
Yep.
Because your spring is perched at both ends.
Right. There's the front leaf springs.
So that shock is much smaller because it has less travel.
Got you. Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you. I learned something. I knew I would.
All right.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.